Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Today we'll be looking back at last week's Microsoft Ignite conference and sharing some key takeaways and big news and share what we thought about it. Just a few housekeeping items before we dive in. We are recording the webinar. We have quite a bit of information to cover. So we will be sure to share the slide deck and the recording later this afternoon. We'll try to keep it to about a 15-minute session, leave some time for questions. We'll address the questions at the end, but please don't hold back. You can submit them anytime throughout the webinar in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel. And that's pretty much it. With me today, I have Daniel, Chris, Adam, and Prashant. And Daniel, I think you can get started.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Daniel Cohen-Dumani, and I'm a leader here in our Rhythm Digital team. I have a lot of experience and excitement about the world of digital transformation. My expertise span with years of SharePoint experience, but supplemented with Microsoft 365, Dynamics, and Azure, of course. A little bit of tidbit about myself. I'm passionate about the productivity in the modern workplace, and specifically in 2020 when we've seen so much digital transformation and remote work. It's something we're passionate about. And if you think about me, I've been in the SharePoint space for almost 20 years. I started working with SharePoint when nobody could spell the word. So excited to be here today. I'm joined here with Chris, and been working with Chris for quite a bit. So hey, Chris.
Hey, Daniel. Quick note. I think the attendees are seeing the presenter mode and not the slideshow.
All right, so I'm going to try to fix that.
But at least you're not on mute because, we didn't have to say that.
So no presenter view here. All right, we're trying that again.
All right, perfect.
There we go.
It's good.
Hey, I look great. Thanks, everyone. So my name is Chris Ertz. I lead our cloud practice here at Levithan, and our team focuses on Microsoft 365 migrations. Today, I'll be talking about security. So looking forward to sharing some updates on the security front. Over to, is it Adam?
I think so. My name is Adam Levithan, practice manager, just like Chris, focusing on intranets. And as I had to say at my MS Learn team session for IT, I've gone over to the team side, that working on collaboration alongside intranets and combining the two. And I will pass it on to Prashant. And Daniel, again, we are seeing the slide, not seeing the slideshow.
All right, so if you guys hang on.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, we're all set. Thank you, Adam, and thanks, Daniel. My name is Prashant G. Bhoyar, and I am working as a senior solution architect with Rhythm Digital. And we lost the screen. Okay. And my expertise is building intranet migration, and especially the intelligent process automation. And I am also a Microsoft MVP as well. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Prashant. So what to expect from today's webinar? Everyone can chime in here, but I think we're going to learn about the biggest news from Microsoft Ignite 2020, what those announcements mean for all of you, and hopefully we'll get your question answers. So if you have questions, use the chat box and the Q&A box. We'll try to answer those definitely at the end, but if it's relevant, we'll answer those during the presentation today. All right, moving on to our first poll. So the poll today are the first question: did you attend Ignite? That should be an easy answer. And we're seeing that half of the people say yes, half say no. Well, if you didn't, you're in the right place. And if you did, I'm sure you're going to learn something that you probably haven't heard, depending on what you focused on. There were so many sessions at Ignite this year that we hope to distill that for all of you. And next poll. What are you the most interested in learning? We're going to cover all of those areas. Probably not so much on Azure, knowing that there was so many news. We could have a 2-hour webinar just to talk about Azure. In the meantime, we're seeing that most people are interested in Teams, for the majority, search, and the Power Platform. So you're in the right place. We're going to cover all of those capability during the webinar today. So thank you so much for answering the questions, and let's get started. All right. So what are the big news? There will be another Ignite conference in March 2021. Is that right, Adam?
Yep. So they used to call it the tour, but obviously we're not traveling. So they are going to set an official date for another, I think it's going to be the same 2 to 3 day session. And that's one of the reasons that this was a rapid pace of excitement for Ignite. And also just for those attending today and listening on the recording, to remind you that there wasn't just the core Ignite sessions, but there is a virtual hub, which is on Tech Community, which are ongoing trainings that were created for this time frame, but they will have much more length and timeliness. Unfortunately, they removed a lot of the roadmap slides, so we're going to have to gather those up to get to you. But there will be another Ignite announcement sessions in March.
Excellent. And there's a new version of Office coming. Office, both products on premise and Exchange, SharePoint, and others, right? Is that right?
Yeah, actually, the Office one is really interesting because it's a purchase model. So they backed off of only having a subscription, and they will have a perpetual model back for on-prem or desktop Office.
Okay, so for those of you still on Exchange on premise, and we know many of our clients or prospective clients still use SharePoint on premise, there's a new version coming in the second half of 2021. Maybe the last one, maybe not, we don't know. But there's a SharePoint 2021 and Exchange 2021 coming as well. And then the last big news is Microsoft Teams was definitely the center stage of the conference. More to come as we go through the presentation today. So let's talk about teamwork. Key news here. If you guys use Microsoft Teams, you will be excited to know that the breakout rooms feature is coming. We had the pleasure to test it in a preview Teams channel. Very exciting. You'll be able to take a very large meeting, split it into breakout meetings. So you can have subsequent meetings and then bring everyone back, and the organizer will be able to jump from breakout rooms to others, things that other platforms have had for quite a while. And we're excited to see that coming to Microsoft Teams. There'll be new together mode scenes, a touchless meeting experience, so you can walk into a conference room and jump in a meeting without touching anything. A new search experience. Adam's going to speak a lot more about this down the road this morning or this afternoon for wherever you're calling from. A new calling experience, a concept of collaborative calling that's going to be fantastic for call centers, Teams templates, and intranet in Teams. So you're going to be able to bring your SharePoint intranet inside the Teams as well. And for those of you that are probably asking yourself, why are you using Teams for the webinar today? We tend to get that questions every time we do a webinar. Well, here's the reason. There's no registration process to host a webinar with Teams, even with Teams live meeting, which will be the appropriate way to deliver this webinar today. So that's coming. It's coming for internal, and that will be a very interesting use case if you are using Teams for professional training or professional development, and you want people to register for an internal event, you'll be able to do that. And of course, if you're using the Microsoft Teams online platform and want to leverage the Microsoft Teams online or live events for external events, you'll be able to use their registration platform. So more to come. I suspect that in 2021, we will be hosting all of our webinars in the Microsoft Teams platform. So lots of exciting. And of course, a lot more. There's a link here in the presentation that you'll be able to access and see all the Microsoft Teams related things in one place. So with that, Adam, what are the key news on Microsoft SharePoint?
So I think another way to say this slide is that SharePoint is playing more and more a support role. And so we see that by the slowing down of innovation. There was a new global navigation announced or app launcher. And so that is making the usability similar to Teams. There are also some updates to how news functions, but on a whole, not any great leaps because the modern interface has reached a point where it's serving a lot of the use cases, not all, but a lot. And the focus, as we'll talk about later, is more on the power of combined services in Project Cortex. And the interesting thing here is, they are dividing Cortex into different products, and the first product to come out is SharePoint Syntex, and which is a combination of several different features. So really interesting that the effort that has been put in for over the last year is now coming out productized, and there'll be more information on that later and throughout the year.
Very good. So again, Microsoft Teams, lots of new announcements. I think one of them concerns meetings, right? And as you probably know, since this pandemic started in March or earlier, depending on where you are, we've been spending a lot of time in meetings, and I think the Microsoft Teams platform has been supporting a lot of those meetings, and as a result, Microsoft has been investing a lot of time to tweak the meeting experience, make it better. They released a new meeting experience a few months ago, and more to come. One of them is what's called the focus mode. If you look in the bottom of the screen here, you'll be able in a large meeting to focus the attention to one person speaking. So for instance, in that screen, you have both the presentation, the slides, the presenter, and the rest of the audience, right? So you have a true ability to customize the grid, what's important, the presentation, the person speaking, but also the other people, all in one screen. You'll be able to have a dynamic view, better together mode. The together mode allow you to put everyone into sort of a equal footing for the meeting, and you'll be able to brand your own here, to join the meeting with proximity with your phone, so you don't have to touch anything, and of course live transcript of meetings when you end up a meeting. So lots of exciting things here.
I'm looking forward to the together mode and coffee shop theme. This little break room in the office seems kind of silly. Everyone's sitting on small bar stools. The current one, as you know,
you'll be able to customize. Bring your themes behind. A team in Microsoft Teams will be able to support up to 25,000 members. Currently, the limit is 10,000, was 5 before, and by the end of this year, we'll raise to 25,000. So if you're working in a very large organization, you'll be able to have a single Microsoft Teams supporting a lot of different people. And then lastly, templates, right? You'll be able to create your own templates or leverage existing templates so that you can have easy way to create new teams, workspaces inside the tool. There'll be an industry specific template for first line workers, like healthcare template or event creation template, and some like employee onboarding templates or project management template as well. More importantly, you'll be able to create your own and customize those to fit your organization needs. So this is another news that's been around, for a while, and this is the walkie-talkie preview. It was demonstrated during Ignite. It's been out in preview for a while, at least in limited preview, and now going into extensive preview as well. This is the concept of using Teams for organizations that have a lot of first-line worker, healthcare, retail, or others, or construction, for instance. You'll be able to use Teams to have a walkie-talkie feature that's available and coming in preview to your Microsoft Teams mobile client.
Android only still?
I believe so, but probably will come to iOS soon as well. Next is Teams Rooms, and I think you have had a lot of experience with Teams Room, Chris. Is anything come to mind from new experience coming?
We're still working with a lot of the manufacturers, and there seems to be more device manufacturers that are presenting Teams Room systems. Here at with them, we use Logitech, but we also have upcoming devices from Poly and Yealink and other players that are contributing to the ecosystem. So make sure whenever you're looking for anything Teams peripherals that you're looking for a certified device.
That's
so
right, very
catalog
important. In this screen, you see some new intelligent speakers. Those are speakers that will be able to detect who's in the room and essentially associate transcription or camera inside a room, at least the voice, to someone in the room. So that's the use case is you're all in the room, you're connected with your laptop, but you're all using a shared speaker that's able to detect who's speaking and attribute the speaking and the transcription to who's talking. Very interesting capability and feature here that are coming in those intelligent speaker. I love the concept of connected meetings. If you have meeting rooms equipped with Microsoft Teams certified equipment, you'll be able to connect multiple rooms into one meetings like your one. So you'll have people joining from different rooms and all the equipment will connect as one and recognize that you're in different rooms, but all sharing and connecting like you were in one room. So very interesting capability here to bring different workspace together as one. So that was interesting, right? So we didn't see that coming. It's the concept of Microsoft Teams panels. If you think about conference room, although we're not really in offices right now, right? So that's more, hey, that's coming down and, you know, will make sense maybe a few months down the road or whenever we're back in an office, right? But you can easily locate and identify rooms, right? Using this Teams panel. Think about a conference room, those have existed. I've seen a lot of our clients have those. What's unique is you'll be able to customize the experience and even customize those panels with your own apps, right? So you'll be able to integrate application and make those your own, right? So you may have a booking features on that goes to a central booking capability. You'll be able to customize that and manage any space. Two third-party provider have announced support, Crestron and Yealink, and are supporting, we'll expect more to come with supporting this concept of Microsoft Teams panel. And then, Chris, there's a lot more coming when it comes to Teams Rooms display, right? Some of those have existed for a while, but you'll see more and more manufacturing embracing the concept of Teams Rooms, from simple desktop-based peripherals like smart speakers or headsets to phones, right? Audio codes, Yealink, Polycom, Crestron, they're all coming up with certified phones. This concept of middle ground displays. I actually have this Lenovo display on my desk. Great device. Allows you to, you know, essentially join a meeting, right? On a one click, but that's meant for small rooms, right? Not large rooms. Very inexpensive, costs about $400 US dollars. There's one from Yealink coming. And of course, the Microsoft Surface Hubs. Microsoft announced new capability with a new Surface Hub running Windows 10 Enterprise or Professional. So that will be a more advanced premium device that can be moved from room to room. So lots of use case with whiteboards and new capability around Surface Rooms here. Lots on the Teams calling, Chris, right? I think we, you know, we've seen a lot of clients moving into leveraging the Microsoft Teams platform for calling. And what you see the feature coming are more call center centric. One of the things that was missing in the Teams calling platform was the ability to record one-on-one calling. That's being in call center and have live transcript. So that's the case of you're in a call center, you're using the Microsoft Teams calling platform, and you want to be able to record a meeting for your training, or do you want to be able to automatically transcript a call one-on-one and one-to-many so that you can retain it in your CRM system, for instance. There's also this concept of connected collaboration, which allows to connect the call queue to a Teams channel. So if you have a queue of calls coming, you can have a Teams channel handling those calls and be allowed to have customer service handling and collaborating on incoming calls coming for a Teams channel.
I think this makes a lot of sense for everyone who's working remote and still trying to maintain this corporate presence. Take, for example, a help desk scenario where your users are calling in the help desk. Everyone can be chatting in that channel and supporting the customer, and those could be on audio or video, but others can still support that. So the call comes in, one person manages, but others contribute through that channel. And that persistent chat will really be helpful to maintain tickets and make sure that you're processing this line of work. It's exciting to see.
Absolutely. So we've talked about breakout rooms earlier. That's coming in October. So in about 3 days, we should start seeing the rollout of the breakout rooms. I can tell you that it's very easy to use. If you guys want, we publish an article on our website, on our blog, that talks about how to use the new breakout feature that are coming shortly. Microsoft also at the same time is increasing the capacity of a Microsoft Teams meeting to 1,000. So that's good news. If you're running larger side meetings that you want to have fewer collaborations. And again, the total Teams capacity will be increasing to about 25,000 members. And that's coming towards the end of the year as well. So before we move to SharePoint Syntex, Adam, we have a great question here from someone attending about once Microsoft supports 25,000 members in a team, do you think that Yammer will be de-emphasized? Adam, what are your thoughts? I think that's a great question.
Really funny because I was typing the answer also. So I think Yammer is going to get more and more specific use cases, and there certainly are overlaps, but at the same time, there are differences. So, we're talking about 25,000 targeted internal users in one team. So you could imagine an HR team for benefits questions that everyone in the organization can have access to. That is not the same discussion that's going to be in Yammer. And Yammer is still an easier place to interact with external partners. Obviously not in meetings. And it's a place where video will be highly combined for leadership presentations and employee engagement. So they still have some superpowers of their own to be used differently. And I think organizations that are currently using Yammer will continue to. And now smaller organizations will have a choice if they want to start up using Yammer or to focus on Teams.
Right, and that I think is good news for organization on the government cloud, right? Because as you probably know, Yammer was never been available in the GCC cloud, even GCC high cloud. So that's good news for those organizations, federal and state government that need a higher level of compliance. And as Adam said, if you're not using Yammer today, you have less incentive to go there, right? Knowing that you don't have a size limitation. A year ago hey, if you had 30,000 people in the community, you didn't have a choice, right? Now you have a choice, right? Do you want to just stay in Teams, or do you want to introduce another tool that slightly looks differently, that is single purpose to handle large scale community, right? Yammer is the tool for large scale communities. So great question. Again, personal preference for each organization, but we're seeing more and more organizations sort of debating the need to have Yammer. And if you're not using it, that's probably a time where you probably can hold off and maybe stay in teams. Or if you see the value of a tool like Yammer that's separate, then you can leverage Yammer for much larger community, 50, 100, 200,000 people as well, including external folks.
Great. So let's
All right,
talk
so
about
Adam. Yes.
yeah, SharePoint Syntex. So first, product inside of the Project Cortex umbrella. And so it's combining these three ideas: content understanding, content processing, and content governance. So, basically you'll now be able to pay. So it's an additional license. We don't have 100% confirmation of the cost, but definitely something to look at the return on investment, because what you're going to be doing in content understanding is taking your knowns and with them being advisory, tax, and audit. We're doing this with a lot of our organizations where we can automate incoming invoices and kick off a process. So taking your known documents and ingesting them. Then content processing, I'll go into an example in a second, but basically is adding that metadata that we've always been trying to add to make all of your teamwork and digital workplace experience better by adding attributes onto your documentation. And then once those attributes are added, you get additional pieces of automatic content governance. So it's a really great, strong package that Microsoft is now coming at you with first-party solutions to. So very exciting to see this first new product. Let's dive a little bit deeper on the next slide into use cases and talking about content processing. So what happens is you're understanding a document. It's like content type, you can say it either way. You are molding documents that are consistent, and you're being able to understand it. It's not the same. It's looking into the system itself. It's understanding paragraphs. It's understanding what is in the content itself, and then applying attributes and classifiers to them. So really exciting features there. And then the first one I had mentioned before is form processing. So here's where you create what's called a model. You take a different form and you teach the system what different fields mean, and then you train it on multiple. Hopefully you have dozens and dozens of filled out forms, and you double check that it's right. And then all of a sudden, every time you put a new form into a specific location, it will grab all of that information from it. So really, allowing people who are hand entering information from one system to the next to eliminate different systems, to integrate, and allow people to work on more interesting and productive and profitable, I guess, if I want to add all the P's in, efforts instead of just manual labor. So that's what's included in SharePoint Syntex. And we see on the next slide, real quick, I think it's our only roadmap slide, but they're already delivering all of these features. There's also, once you have these classifiers, those classifiers combine into being topics. And then, they already have a designed next step, which is in early next year, and being able to expand what's automatically understood. And then being able to also transform your taxonomy, your navigation into, with all of the context and topics that are being learned. So really cool information. that once you're buying into Syntex, you're going to get more and more features.
Very good. So Project Cortex was a lot more than just this. This is one piece that Microsoft said we're going to release it separately, focusing on document processing, document intelligence, essentially automatic content tagging, right? Which has been sort of what people have expected from document management system for many, many years, right?
Right.
All right. Great stuff. Thank you, Adam. So tell us about the search. I think there was quite a bit of announcement and some exciting things around Microsoft Search.
Yeah, there were. So Microsoft Search, I mean, there were announcements and at last year's Ignite, maturity several months after it, and now the announcement that the connectors are going to be in general availability very soon. Before the end of calendar year 2020 is the announcement. And so they have announced there are 5 current connectors, but also most exciting for me are what's coming next. Already on the roadmap are connectors for Oracle, connectors inside SharePoint, which sounds weird, but I'll show you why that's important. And then also a Salesforce connector. So they've really been listening to people, and we were in the beta, people testing and what our customers were asking for. So they're building more and more internal connectors to be able to allow us just to use a what you see is what you get and connect and pull data so that your Microsoft Search really is that central intelligent place for all of your employees to find answers. So that's really exciting. And actually, I can show you a tiny bit more of what a search connector represents. So there are many, many announcements, but with limited time, I wanted to focus on a few different areas. So the first area is refiners. Yay! Not only first-party refiners, but when I mentioned connectors before, if you see on this top refiners image, you'll see across the top different verticals. And so those verticals represent connectors. And so now we'll be able to achieve what we've been doing and still do with custom code with our clients and focus a vertical on an internal SharePoint source. So our traditional intranet search can be focused on one of these verticals so that people don't get lost in all of the content that is all across Microsoft 365. However, now they'll be able to, with out-of-the-box and custom filters, be able to filter it much, much better than they currently. So that's a real exciting announcement that this year we hope to have in front of our fingertips. However, I think it's really interesting on the right-hand side here, in content selection. While we've been using Microsoft Search for over a year for us, but it's been in the wild for a year. They realized that one Google bar, was I supposed to mention that? One Bing bar doesn't necessarily make sense in the SharePoint context. So really excited to see that they recognize this and they're bringing back the contextual dropdown. I joked in a previous discussion that it's sort of like 2010, but it's really not, because you can see here on the top, it's when you're doing a site search, it identifies the current site, the hub, or the organization, so you can skip to the different levels. But then also, because the search bar is both for sites and in your document libraries, you can see here that if you're in a folder, it would actually say this folder or files, or it will say the document library. And in this case, it's actually OneDrive that will say my files, all files, or whole organization. So really, they're providing context and letting the user understand that where they're performing the search, which is magnificent. And then the final one, I probably should have blown this one up and had a whole dedicated page, but all of the things I just mentioned are coming to Teams Search. So Teams does not yet have Microsoft Search installed, and we all know how we feel about the current Microsoft Search. So don't blame Microsoft Search for that. It is coming. And when it does, there will be verticals. So those verticals will include posts and messages and files. And then what's really neat, which is a little different than the SharePoint experience, is they're going to highlight the actual keyword, which you can see here with the little darker sections in that Teams. There will be those same refiners, and those refiners will change as you go to the different verticals in Teams. So a really great Teams search experience that we've all been waiting for. But remember that this is all a unified search, and that's the biggest thing about Microsoft Search. So you could start people at office.com. You could start people in Bing, which I have some reservations of, and then also from SharePoint, from Office, from PowerPoint, from Word. And you're going to have the same index, the same results, but it also knows where you're coming from, so it will highlight those results different. Actually, I should mention one of the major things too was Outlook search getting smarter and being able to display not just messages, but the documents attached to those messages. So it's going to become much easier to find items in Outlook. I mean, if you're even using Outlook anymore, right? We should all be using Teams, mostly. Prashant doesn't buy that. All right, well, yeah, it's kind of true.
Very good. So exciting things in the area of search. I like to say finally. So that was the rundown of Microsoft Teams. There are more news, and of course, at the end of this webinar, we'll share a link about where to find. If in the meantime you want to know, just go to your preferred search engine and look for Ignite 2020 Book of News, and this will be all the news in one list. Lots of news to cover. So next is some exciting news around the Power Platform. So Prashant, tell us about Power Apps in Teams, aka Project Oakdale, and what is this and what is the value?
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is the marketing slide from Microsoft, and what they are implying is the low code is getting a lot of traction in the enterprise space. So if you see from the latest survey they did, they are anticipating by 2024, 65% of the enterprise application development will happen in low code tools. Now, when it comes to low code tools in Microsoft ecosystem, we have a Power Platform, which spans across Dynamics 365, Office 365, and Azure. And there are some other competitors as well, which are non-Microsoft, like the Appian or Pega. So this low-code battle is really heating up, and Microsoft is cognizant of that, and they have launched a lot of products which fits very well into the low-code world. So next slide, please, Daniel. So they announced about Project Oakdale during the Inspire conference this year. And what it is it's basically a built-in low-code data platform for Microsoft Teams. And this data platform, next slide. Can you do like next and display all the bullet points on this slide? Thank you. So what is basically is basically a relational data store, and it has rich data types, and we can also do enterprise grade governance with that, and it also offer the one-click solution deployment. Now you may be wondering why Microsoft needs to have another data store in Microsoft Teams, right? Since majority of us are coming from the SharePoint background, when we have to create a new app using Power App in Microsoft Teams, we already know that we have a really good data source available in the form of SharePoint list that we can use. However, after COVID-19 pandemic, the usage of Teams have skyrocketed, and a lot of organizations who does not have any kind of background in SharePoint are also using Microsoft Teams. And those organizations doesn't necessarily understand how SharePoint lists function, what are some of the relationship we have. Another key point is SharePoint lists are not a traditional relational data storage. Like we can still achieve some relational data, but if you have to scale your app, and let's say if you had to make that app available for your entire organization, and if your organization have more than 10,000 employees, then storing the data in SharePoint list is not practical, or it does not scale. So with that, they launched this new product called Project Oakdale, which is only available in the context of Microsoft Team, and each team will get an instance of the Project Oakdale, and we can create a relational database store with that, and we can share that data across uh, the Power Apps which are created in the context of the team. And along with the Power Apps, they also introduce Power Virtual Agent that we can start customizing within the interface of team itself. So this particular Project Octal is now in public preview. So if your Office 365 tenant is set to receive the preview features, then you may see this feature available in your tenant. We already have seen this feature available to us in the Witham tenant. So depending on what kind of settings you have in your Office 65 or Microsoft 65 tenant, you will see that. But it's a really good way to start getting into Power Apps and bot development from the Teams UI itself. Next slide, please.
Yes, so Prashant, that is obviously an exciting news, and I think one point to add about Project Oakdale, which really was a code name, it is now Power Apps in Teams. The backend is still the Common Data Services, a lighter version, a streamed down version of the Common Data Services, which used to cost money. And I think the big announcement was Power Apps in Team using the backend Project Oakdale, which is CDS Lite, will be included in everyone's Teams license, right? So you now can build apps in Teams, and the word in Teams is important. You can build apps in Teams at no cost using a relational backend that can be upgraded to more and better things if you get to that point. So lots of great use case and opportunity here that Microsoft is bringing us.
And as Daniel mentioned, this is already included in your Teams license. And for some reason, if you would like to take advantage of additional features that the full version of CDS offers, there is upgrade path available as well. That means we can start with the Project Octal, create our Power App in Teams, and if you had to add additional feature that are only available in traditional CDS, we can also upgrade our app. So there are also more platform news out there. And as Daniel mentioned in the beginning, we are not going to cover each and every news, but some of the news which we think are more relevant. And you see this, some of the items here you will see, we'll see that there is a more integration happening between the low-code developer community and the pro developer community. And some of the news from Power Platform team are geared more towards the pro developer community, like how you can do the integration between the low-code developer community and the pro code developer community. So one of the things they announce is, so many of you already aware that few months before Microsoft acquired one of the leading providers in the robotic process automation called Softmotive. And now the integration of Softmotive inside the Power Platform tools have started. So now we have Microsoft Power Automate Desktop, which basically is available in the preview, and we can do RPA capabilities in the context of Power Automate. There is another pro developer feature they announced, which is in the preview, which is Azure API Management Connector. So earlier, to use that, you need to have a Power Apps premium license. But now they announced that even if you have Power Apps through Office 365 license, we can still use Azure API Management Connectors. This is huge because now using that, we can create custom connectors where you have a Power App, and that Power App can then integrate with your on-premise data. And for the integration, you create a custom connector and you use Azure API Management for that. There is also some announcement or news regarding the integration of Power Virtual Agents and Azure Bot Framework. Those of you who are not aware about Power Virtual Agent, it is one of the offerings inside Microsoft Power Platform, and Power Virtual Agents allows you to create no-code chatbots. And Power Virtual Agents are built on the top of Azure Bot Framework, which is traditionally for developers to create custom chatbots. And now there is a tighter integration between these two products. So now using a Composer, which is a free open source tool where we can design the dialogues for a bot, we can create the dialogues in the bot for the bot using Composer, and we can integrate directly into the Power Virtual Agent.
Very
And this feature
exciting
will
news.
be,
And
yep, and this feature will be available in public preview for fall 2020.
great, so that's coming soon. One thing
Yep.
to mention about the Azure API Management Connector, that's a big deal too, because some of you that have been familiar with the complexity of licensing of the Power Platform probably knew that Power Apps was a great tool until you had to connect to external system, right? And there was a lot of restriction to connecting Power Apps without a license or with a seeded license to external system. With this announcement, Microsoft has said, by the way, with Project Octale, it's free, it's included in your team license. You'll be able to talk to any standard data source. In addition, you'll be able to call Azure APIs that you built, and that will be included with the seeded free license in Microsoft Teams. You'll be able to create Power Apps that not only talk to data in Teams, data in Office 365, but also connects with other systems in your organization. And then I had the demonstration of integration that they built for T-Mobile that use an API connector that will be included for free into Microsoft Teams. So great excitement about the art of the possible that you'll be able to do within Microsoft Teams. Great, so thank you, Prashant. Great segue, and let's talk a little bit about security. So Chris, tell us about what's happening in the world of security, compliance, and identity as well.
Great, thanks everyone. So at a high level, some changes that Microsoft made this fiscal year as it relates to security is if you look at the business groups and even the field organizations and how they address security, most of the technology was introduced in Azure. So Azure Information Protection, Azure Active Directory, but where it's surfaced is in the modern desktop, so Microsoft 365. They've announced that the resources for security will be now focused on the modern desktop in Microsoft 365. So Azure is going to focus on what it does, which continues to grow as a compute platform. But from a security offering perspective, it now falls underneath the category of the modern desktop. And if you look at the modern desktop, there's been a slew of security add-ons underneath this brand called Advanced Threat Protection, which when someone asked me the question, what's Advanced Threat Protection? Which, by the way, they never ask, but when I explain it, that Advanced Threat Protection has 4 different areas. It's Azure Advanced Threat Protection and Office Advanced Threat Protection and Windows Advanced. It was just so confusing. And it was hard from a licensing perspective to articulate, what do I own? What can I take advantage of? What's already included? And what's an add-on? Right. And so we're excited to see that they took that feedback and from a branding perspective, have chosen to reduce the acronym, because who needs another Microsoft acronym, and focus on a core theme of securing, which is Defender. So at Ignite last week, they announced a new brand across these capabilities where Microsoft Threat Protection is now called Microsoft 365 Defender. Microsoft Defender ATP is now called Defender for Endpoint, which was always part of Windows to begin with. The Office, which is primarily email protection, is now Defender for Office 365. And then the one that focused on all the triggers and signals in Azure is just Defender for Identity. So really a sigh of relief for me to be able to say, focus on Defender and where it makes sense to implement across an endpoint, across your Office platform, or across your identity platform. There's a lot of work that needs to get done on price lists and slides and documentation that'll filter down in the next several weeks and months. But at least we have a new vernacular to align to when it comes to articulating the value of Microsoft security platform relating to the modern desktop. So if you weren't following what's going on, the value of leveraging Microsoft security capabilities in your subscription as opposed to adding on through third party is all this intelligence that Microsoft now gathers by running global data centers on a day-to-day basis, they process 8 trillion security signals. And there's no way that any organization could try to build up their own security arsenal without this inventory or knowledge of what's happening in the internet space. And so you apply all these signals, and then that, with machine learning, builds the intelligence to allow you to respond or automatically respond through a process of automation. So traditional security would say you're aware of these, but our ability to react and respond is a huge gap. And other platforms, days, weeks, months go by where someone had to manually go in and say, oh, this happened, and as a result, I can go and do this. Well, because of all this automation and machine learning that's built into this platform, Microsoft is able to protect you and then remediate based upon what you've set up in your policy to avoid any incidents or loss of data, etc. So we've been having many conversations with organizations on how to take their policies and then articulate them and translate them into how they can protect themselves using the Microsoft Cloud. Second bullet, zero trust security, which is an overall effort in the industry, and Microsoft is moving toward this concept of zero trust, but many of our IT leaders are embracing this. It basically assumes, it says, assume breach and trust no one in your devices. So any device that introduces itself to your environment needs to say, hi, this is who I am. And there are ways that Microsoft is allowing through different factors of authentication, for example, for first line workers, passwordless sign-on. So not dealing with passwords, still being secure and working within the environment, even though you're outside the environment. Azure Sentinel is an example. It was released about a year ago. And in that time frame, they've taken all of these signals and developed greater protection, greater intelligence, and now supports the Microsoft Defender platform, so down to the endpoints. There are over 150 connectors that allow you to interpret information from not only the Microsoft platform, but other third-party systems that you digest. So lots of built-in intelligence. And again, the concept of automation within Azure Sentinel. For the picture here, I took a look at my own personal Active Directory My Apps portal this week. And yes, it did change. There's some new icons and a better look and feel for the My Apps on Microsoft.com. So this is basically anything that you can use your Microsoft 365 identity to authenticate to that cloud-based service. And this has been a really nice evolution. We help many organizations who have all these SaaS-based applications not have to manage passwords, separate passwords, and authentication to those systems. And there's ways that, for example, I'm working on a project now to allow role-based access control. And so I may have a security role within that SaaS-based application. I can now interpret that and set those security parameters by groups inside of my Azure directory. Next slide. Next slide is going to be on compliance.
Yes, and one more thing at the last bullet, Chris, is this concept of passwordless security. It's coming to first-line workers. Mm-hmm. I think one of the challenge that we have had from an identity perspective is the fact that when you have to support people on the field that may not have a help desk they can reach out to, how do you make that experience as seamless as possible? And you'll be able to now enable for first-line worker easier sign-in and security with this concept of passwordless login, which is send a text or identify yourself with other things and you're in, right? Send me an email that exists, and those systems exist with competitive, right? If you look at Slack or Zoom or others capability, have the ability to identify people without a password, right? So that's exciting, and that's coming to Azure AD essentially, not just for Teams, but everywhere across the board.
Yep. So when we think of first-line workers, we look at our automotive clients, we look at our manufacturing clients, we look at healthcare, where people are out, maybe not on a traditional desktop, but still participating in the corporate experience. Thank you. So compliance, the Compliance Manager, if you haven't seen Compliance Manager, I urge you to go and review this. You might know your secure score, but maybe you haven't taken a look at the compliance manager. This is V2 of the compliance manager. It's still the classic, but in preview, you can access what I'm showing here as well in your Microsoft 365 compliance journey. It essentially says if you're a regulated industry, Microsoft can help you achieve a higher threshold of capabilities by using the Microsoft Cloud. And so in our space, in the DC metro area, we have many federal organizations or organizations that work with the federal government. And they're commercial organizations, but they still, from a compliance perspective, in order to work on federal contracts, they need to have certain requirements. And this one is NIST 800-171. And I gave this one as an example here. And so if you look at all these controls, and there are several hundred controls that you need to go through in your settings to work on. Some of them are technology, some of them are policy driven, some of them are operations driven. But you need to go through this, and Microsoft will really help. In this case, we filtered on all of the ones that were failing, that are high, medium, or low risk. And I can see the impact from overall percentage. They use gamification. But essentially what you can do is you can go through each of these steps and assign tasks. So if you have someone on your team, or even this is what we do it with them, if you want to assign it to someone on our team that support you, we can go and do that research on that particular topic and put together a test that says, okay, we've documented this, we have a process, we know what to do in order to reach the compliance requirements for this platform. So net, there's still a lot of work to get done, but Microsoft Cloud will help you get to 80% there, and then you have to do the rest of the 20% to make sure you reach those requirements.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. So lots of exciting things in compliance as well. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about Azure here. Prashant, there were a lot of news around Azure. I think we could spend the next 2 hours distilling a lot of news, but why don't you highlight a few things that were interesting to note?
Okay. So as Daniel mentioned, there are tons of announcements regarding Azure, and we definitely recommend you to check the Ignite book of news. So some of the highlights, especially these highlights, are related to the work we do in SharePoint or in Power Platform or in Teams. So under Azure AI, we have a tool called Bot Framework Composer, which is an open source tool, and we can create a visual bot using that. And it is available on GitHub. We can use that to create our bot experience and then deploy that as a custom bot in our platform of our choice. And they also announced a new cognitive service called Azure Cognitive Service Features and Spatial Analysis, which is help you to evaluate the instant information from your analytics and also from your marketing campaign. So there is a tons of news available on that one, and there is tons of announcement happen on the Azure infrastructure side and on the developer side as well. But the key thing that we would like to mention here is if you are working more in the Power Platform, or if you're working more in Microsoft 365, a lot of features are coming where you can integrate your Power Platform workflows or your Microsoft 365 workflows and implement customization using Azure for that. And more news you can find definitely going to that Ignite book of news 2020.
Excellent, thank you, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We have had a few questions. I think we answered those throughout, and we are running out of time. We had a lot of content here, but one offer for those of you that are attending today and those of you that are listening to the recording is, if you're interested to learn more, our experts on this call today, myself, Adam, Chris, Prashant, and many more here at Witham are available to talk to you and tell you about some of these new capabilities that are coming. We're so excited about it that we will offer you a free consultation with us. So click on this link, book a meeting, and we'd be happy to talk to you about some of those needs and how to get digital transformation going into your organization. One last thing is we speak a lot about those subjects. All our team members are blogging and posting content. Subscribe to this so you get notification when we have new content coming. Thanks again for joining us today. I hope you find this useful, and thanks again for my teammate here for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye-bye.